Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Welcome to Bring Out the Talent, a podcast learning and development experts discussing innovative approaches and industry insights. Tune in to hear our talent help develop yours. Now here are your hosts, TTA's CEO and President Maria Melfa and Talent Manager Jocelyn Allen.
Hi, everyone. This is Maria.
Hey, everybody. It's Jocelyn. We're back. I know we better introduce ourselves because it's been a while. People might not remember who we are.
Yes, it's been several months. We've taken a break, and I feel a little rusty today. I don't even know what I'm doing here today.
It's true. We didn't even know how to press unmute from our microphones. It's been so long. So,
I know.
you know what? That just means we got it all out in the beginning, and it's going to be rock solid from here on out. So,
or if not, bear with us. So.
Yes. It'll be fun either way, but I'm very excited to be back with you, Maria. Round three, as they say.
I'm very excited too. And I know at the end we do a fun contest, but I think, Jocelyn, we should start doing a contest in the beginning on who can dance best to our intro music. Because Ashley just did some good moves here.
She did. She absolutely killed it. I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's such a great tune. How can you not dance to it? Like, I'm pumped.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, excellent. So let's get started. Today, we are talking about a topic that I think we could never have enough knowledge on, and that is leadership. Leadership can be defined in many different ways, but author Joanne Ciulla wrote it best when she said, leadership is not a person or a position. It is a complex moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, commitment, emotion, and a shared vision of the good. There are many leaders among us, and they're found in various kinds of people, places, and even in the most unlikely positions. Unfortunately, though, many people don't realize their ability to lead or influence because they often feel that to be an effective leader, they must have that innate leadership drive, or they view leadership as a title that has to be either deserved or earned. While both scenarios may help, you truly don't need to change who you are to be an effective leader. You simply just have to learn how to leverage who you are to make an impact. To help us dive into today's important topic, we are joined by Ashley Cox. Ashley is the founder and CEO of Sprout HR and author of Transform Your Stories, Overcome Your Toxic Stories, Become a Courageous and Confident Leader, and Impact the World. Love that. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Maria and Jocelyn, for having me here. I'm so excited to talk to you both. I love your podcast, and it is just an honor to be here and have this important conversation.
We're so glad to have you.
See, told you we're rusty. We're gonna we tell each other all the time. We're gonna do the hand signals and let us know. But it's all right. It's part of our charm, Maria.
It's natural,
right?
It is.
Ashley, we are very excited to have you here. We love your energy. We love what you bring to the table, how you define leadership, and this idea behind embodying what the kind of motives are, what the skills are behind it, as opposed to what a title gives you in that role. And yeah, like I said, we're excited to talk to you about it. So I know when we met you, you shared your remarkable origin story, starting in management and then transitioning to recruiting. I don't know anything about that. And then finding yourself in this more of an HR and L&D type role. I think there's a lot about your story that will actually resonate with our listeners because it does with us. And we know, that we're kind of like, we all have a journey that we've taken. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you got into HR, what this journey was and where it brought you to today?
Yes, I'm happy to. So listeners in the audience, raise your hand if you accidentally fell into HR. That's where my origin story begins. I had never set out on the path to be in talent acquisition or human resources or any of this field. I actually received an opportunity when I was in store management where I staffed a brand new Kroger store with over 350 employees in an 8-week time period. And it was my first huge talent acquisition recruiting endeavor. And thankfully, I achieved the goal, and we had such a successful store opening, and it was amazing. And so that was my first foray into talent acquisition and recruiting on large scale projects. So I was invited to apply for an open position in our HR department as a recruiter. And that really just set me off on this career path almost 16 years ago. So from there, I worked in recruiting for a solid year, traveling all over, recruiting at different colleges and universities in a 5-state area. And then I was promoted into a talent development role. And I had a much bigger, responsibility and over training and development and recruiting. And then from there, moved more into a kind of an all-encompassing generalist type of position. And I spent a few years as a generalist. I have a very broad range of knowledge and experience, from recruiting to talent acquisition to comp and ben, all the way into employee performance, employee management, risk management, all of the areas of HR. I'm really fortunate to have worked in so many different areas and have a really well-rounded HR background and experience, which adds a lot of value to the work that I do now as an independent consultant working with small businesses and professional women.
So when did you get the idea about writing your book?
I have wanted to write a book since I was 5, and I can clearly remember my first show and tell in kindergarten. I brought a book to read, and I was an early reader. So I read the whole book for the class, and it was The Little Engine That Could. And I just remember thinking, how cool would it be to write a book one day? And, you have kind of some idea of what this might look like at 5, but not really understanding when you write an actual book that has 50,000 words. But I just got it in my mind. I want to write a book. I don't know what it's going to be about yet. And about a few years into my business ownership journey, I had had several people just commenting on various things. Oh, this topic really resonates with me, or that really spoke to me. And they were generally around the mindset of leadership. Am I a leader? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. I don't know. And then I wrote this series of blog posts that was based on a podcast episode that I had listened to about how we have this bias in our thinking that we are not cut out for something, or we get stuck in our mind that this is the story I'm going to tell myself, and this is the story I'm going to believe. And unless we challenge ourselves, or unless an external force or person challenges us, we kind of just stay there. And that's our comfort zone. So I was like, let me write a blog post about this, because I feel like this is what our clients really struggle with is, I don't know if I'm cut out to be a leader. So I was like, well, let's challenge that. And so the first blog post I wrote is just going to be a one post, got so much positive feedback, and people were like, I want more. So I thought, okay, let's expand this. What are the stories we tell ourselves? What are the stories that society tells us? What are the stories that we grew up with in our families or our cultures? And how do we overcome these? And so that one blog post turned into 4 blog posts. And then people just kept saying, I would read a whole book about this. So I was like, light bulb moment. There's the book. Let me write what the people want. But I also think, this was a book that I very much wish that I would have had younger in my leadership journey, because I often felt like, I don't know if I'm a leader. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. There's a lot of times throughout your career that you question whether or not you're in the right role, you're in the right place, you're the person, that's maybe been tapped on the shoulder for this position, but you're still self-doubting, you're still second guessing. And I think that we waste so much energy on doubting ourselves and second guessing and pushing aside what could be, instead of creating the impact that we could have if we just embraced it and stepped into that role.
I love that. I agree with you, because you hear so much, there's different buzzwords around the culture and the climate in the workforce in general. And imposter syndrome is a huge thing that people are dealing with right now, because I think, one, there's been a lot of changes in the professional workforce, and a lot of people who are making changes based on their skills and what they could be doing with them versus what they have been doing with them. And that transition alone is a little scary and kind of makes you doubt this is different than anything I've ever done. Is this really for me? And that's what I love about your book, which is titled Transform Your Stories, Overcome Your Toxic Stories, Become a Courageous and Confident Leader, and Impact the World. Love that. Like, so much boss energy behind that title. But it really is about exactly what we're talking about, kind of taking away that imposter shield and leveraging who you are, the skills that you come with. And I love that position on what you're targeting and the audience that you're trying to talk to. Can you dive into that a little bit more, what it means to transition your thinking and talk about who am I and how do I use this?
Yes. I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because we need to talk about this topic so much more, because society would have us believe that a leader looks like ABC. And I think a leader uses all the letters in the alphabet, that a leader doesn't have to just be A, B, or C, or D, E, F, or X, Y, Z. It really is an opportunity for each of us to embrace our natural talents, our natural strengths, our natural skill sets. I remember being a first-time leader at 22. I just graduated college, and I'm co-manager at this huge store where we have over 300 employees, and I kept getting dinged for being too nice. They were like, "You're too soft, you're too nice, you're too compassionate, like people are going to run you over." And so I spent a lot of time trying to not be myself. And it backfired. It didn't work. And the more I tried to be like them, or like what I was being, guided to be, for me, it was a lot more masculine type of energy, a lot more masculine skill sets, things that just were very unnatural for my personality and who I am in this world. The worse it got, people didn't want to listen to me. They were like, "Oh, this is a little off-putting. It's a little harsh." And so I finally had a female manager that I could look up to, and I could see that she was doing things differently. And I was like, "Oh, like maybe I can't be compassionate. She is. It's working for her. She's doing great things." Okay. So it took being able to see someone else leading in a way that felt really natural and more comfortable to me, for me to finally have that light bulb moment that said, "Okay, I don't have to be like them. It's different for them. They can lead like this. It works for them. That's great. And I can do something totally different and be successful." And once I leaned into my own natural skills and strengths and the things that I embodied as a human, as a person, my leadership journey just really took off. I got a lot more opportunities. I was really successful with our team. They listened to me and they reacted, and we worked together really, really well. So that's what I wanted to bring into the book, was that if you have been told your whole life that you're too soft, you're too quiet, a lot of times we hear this with introverts. I am not an introvert, but I love our introverted leaders because they're so thoughtful and they're so intentional. And so a lot of times they're often told, "You're not charismatic enough. You're not this enough. You're not that enough." And it can be really damaging to their own self-belief. Like you mentioned, Jocelyn, that imposter syndrome. "I'm not cut out to be a leader. I'm too quiet." No, you're not. You're exactly who we need. And I think there are a lot of leaders out there that we need today that we don't have in the workforce. And that's leaders who lead with empathy and compassion and a human to human connection. And I think, in the definition that you read at the beginning, Maria, that hit it perfectly, the nail on the head, right? That this is the human experience, that we are people working with people. And if we forget that, then I think that we've lost what is so special about being in a leadership role.
Sounds like a part of your journey was finding a mentor of sorts, somebody that you finally connected with to kind of bridge the gap between what you knew you were capable of and how to actually use the skills that you had without changing yourself. So is that an important part of maybe your book in this journey? Do you talk about mentorship and kind of finding somebody who can support you along the way? Because I love that. I agree with you. I connected with that a lot because I found myself adapting to who I am and what I'm capable of doing with that as soon as I found somebody who recognized that in me and took the time to develop who I was into what I could be.
100%, Jocelyn, 100%. It's so important to have a mentor that you can look up to and who you feel comfortable with. And I talk about mentorship definitely in the book. And the book itself is a mentor experience. It's part written stories. I tell stories from my own personal background, some of them are really embarrassing. So if you like embarrassing stories, go read my book. Some of them are client stories. Some of them are friend stories. Everybody's anonymous. I didn't use any identifying information, but I wanted to tell these real stories of real people who have experienced this. And so you're kind of getting that mentor experience where you're saying, hey, listen, here's someone that was on the path just like you, or I struggled with this, and here's how I helped myself through it. And then the book is part story and part journaling experience. So then you also get the opportunity to walk through some really thought-provoking questions and sit with yourself and sit with your thoughts. And I put plenty of space in the book to actually write those thoughts, because if you're like me, I like to write along with what's happening in the book and make sure that I'm absorbing the information and I'm processing it and I'm getting hands-on. And so it's an opportunity to create that mentoring experience, even if you and I can't sit down and have a coffee together.
I love that. I would mark the heck out of that book for sure. That is,
I know.
journaling is very much a space that I connect with. So that very, very smart, because I would use that.
Yeah, I'm always fussing because margins in books keep getting smaller and smaller. I'm like,
They
where am I
sure
supposed to
do.
write my notes?
Along with the print, right? Not to be that person, but I mean, I'm crossing that threshold here in my life. So,
Well, it's funny because I know when we, first started talking, when we talked about leadership being for all and not just, people in the so-called leadership title.
Mhm.
But as we, started talking, I'm like, oh, this would be a great book for us to do in our leadership team. And then like 2 minutes later, I'm like, why am I just saying that for the leadership team? It would be a great book for everybody in the organization to read.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've had people tell me, I don't actually lead a team right now. I'm not sure if I ever
Mhm.
will lead a team, but this book isn't just about leading other people. It's about leading yourself. And I thought that's the best testimony of the
That's
book. I didn't
excellent.
say that.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
And I love books where they have a lot of stories where they're speaking
Mhm.
to a lot of real life examples. And like
Yeah.
you're saying, you're sharing some of your embarrassing stories, because obviously a lot of us can relate to that. So
right.
it may
Yeah.
seem like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened to me, but it probably happened to many other people.
Probably.
Right.
It's a very
Yes.
vulnerable experience. I
Mhm.
also feel like writing this book and putting it out in the world was another part of my leadership journey.
Mhm.
Being able to say, hey, this is real life. This happened to me. It's easy to show up in that expert role and say, I'm the expert. I know this thing. Just do what I say. But really being able to share genuinely, this is something I struggled with. Here's all the challenges I faced during that time. Here's how I helped myself out, or here's the mentor relationship I had that helped me navigate that, or this was a quote or a book that I read that really supported me during that difficult time. I think that's so important to share the behind the scenes of what it looks like to be a leader. And I tell people in the book, and I tell people all the time, I wrote the book on this, but I'm still practicing this every single day of my life. I have stories that still pop up, and I have to constantly challenge myself. Is this true? Okay. And if I'm not going to be the one who's going to stand up and say this or do this, who is? And what if nobody else does? And this is the exact message that people need to hear. And so I think it's just so important to just keep challenging yourself. And a lot of leadership is being really comfortable with being super uncomfortable.
Mhm. Here, here. I'll cheers to that for sure.
But being
Mhm.
vulnerable is definitely an underrated quality for a leader.
Mm.
So, Ashley, do you often see the same challenges that leaders have for both females and male leaders? Or are they different?
Oh, there are definitely similarities, but very prominent differences. And I think the biggest difference is coming back to that imposter syndrome. And I think something that Jocelyn and I had just touched on a moment ago was having a mentor who looks like you, or who has a similar personality or qualities or characteristics. And when we don't see, and this is not new, this is not rocket science, when we don't see someone like us, then we're not sure if we can be in that role. So when we don't see women in leadership roles, we don't know, is that for me? Could I do that? Do I have to be somebody completely different? And I think that, we talk a lot about, especially at Sprout HR, about how representation is incredibly important, because when you see it, you can be it. And it takes a lot of courage to go first and to be the first person, whether it's the first woman or the first person of color or the first, immigrant of your family, first generation immigrant, whoever you may be, whoever you might, present as in this world. It's important for you to see people who look like you, who sound like you, who believe like you, who have the characteristics that you do. And that was very, very true for me. I was in a very male dominated industry, and there was a lot of men at the leadership helm, and they were great at doing what they were doing, but they weren't necessarily great role models for me because I led in a very different way. So it was important for me to have that mentor, to have that leader, to have that example of someone who used empathy and who used compassion and who used, some different skill sets, not better, not worse, just different. And I think that's what we often get too tied up in. And especially you'll see this in lots of different reports and studies and things. You'll see that men are often, given this certain set of characteristics as leaders, and women often have a different set of characteristics. So where men might be more decisive, women might be more collaborative. Where men might be more aggressive, but in a positive context, women might be seen as softer, more compassionate. And so that's not necessarily 100% true all the time, all across the board. There are variances, and, I can have a hard conversation just with the best of them because those are skills that I've had to learn and that I've had to use. And we can, implement those different skill sets across the board. But I do think that women a lot of times get dinged for some of these quote unquote softer skill sets or gentler approaches. And so that can make it seem like you're not cut out for this role, when in fact, that's exactly what we need for you to be.
It's interesting. And I know we were just talking about a trait that might be more seen in a woman leader, vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So how often do you see that men are willing to be more vulnerable?
I think that we have a cultural shift that is moving this direction. And I've definitely seen more men embracing that vulnerability. I think it's harder for them because as a society, we have had the story, just kind of sticking with the transforming stories, the story has been told that real men aren't vulnerable. Real men aren't soft. Real men aren't nice. Like you have to be tough and you have to rule with an iron fist and you have to be strong and aggressive. And I think that real men can also be vulnerable and compassionate and empathetic. And there are going to have to be those who go first. And we're starting to see more of that. I think Simon Sinek is a great example of someone who really leads with a lot more vulnerability and compassion and empathy. And as other men can see men stepping into leadership roles with some of those softer skills, I think that we'll start seeing much more of that in the workplace. And also people aren't tolerating it these days. They're just not. We have the great resignation because people are tired of being, lambasted, I guess, would be maybe the, like I'm going to rule with an iron fist and you're going to be afraid of me. And we're using fear as a tactic instead of collaboration. Right. So I definitely see the cultural shift, and it's probably going to take a while to get there. We have a lot of people in the world. And so I think just more men being courageous and stepping up and being vulnerable is going to lead the way for others to do the same.
Very good point. Another common misconception as we're talking about it is something that we had also mentioned in the intro, is that leadership as a title needs to be deserved or earned.
No.
And we're shifting towards it being more of a mindset, right?
Yes.
So let's dive into that a little bit, but maybe let's talk about like what you would say to somebody who comes to you with that concern. Like this person's on your team and they're like, that's not me. Let's talk about that a little more.
Toxic story. That's all it is. It's just a story. It's a story that either we have learned culturally or societally, or that we have somehow embraced on our journey, that you're not what a leader looks like. Let me tell you what, I made a post and I wish that I could have done this more in a visual format, but I had a little mirror, just a little mirror. And I was like, this is what a leader looks like. Look in the mirror. You're exactly what a leader looks like. And maybe you don't think that you're a leader because you don't have the title, you don't have the position power, you don't have people reporting to you, but I promise you, you're a leader somewhere in your family, in your church, in your community, in your volunteer efforts, just by the way that you hold the door for someone behind you, by the way that you're kind, to the people in the service industry. You're leading every day by the example that you're setting for others. And those of you who have children, you are the supreme being leaders of the universe because you are leading tiny humans to learn how to be good and kind and lovely and wonderful, productive human beings. If you don't think that you're a leader in that capacity, then you and I need to have a conversation because you are. You are. So I think it's redefining, what does leadership look like? What does it sound like? Who's involved? And looking for opportunities where you're already leading. And that's one of the suggestions that I give in my book is look for your leadership right now. You don't have to be deemed a leader. Nobody has to bless you or grant you with this leadership title. You can lead right where you are. You can lead on your team as a peer to other people. The way that you show up, the way that you collaborate with other people, the way that you communicate, the way that you show up for people in your work environment, the way that you anticipate needs and fill them, the way that you make sure that everybody feels seen and heard and validated on your team. If somebody has an idea, you're advocating for that person. You're saying, hey, this person has an idea, like, let's listen up. So there's so many different, beautiful, incredible ways that we can show up as leaders in everyday life. And I challenge you this week to just go look for those. I bet you'll find them.
Such a great insight, because I agree with everything you're saying. And we talk about it internally too, because it is very much an asset that we value here at TTA and lead by is being a human being and connecting with human beings, meeting them where they're at, both personally and professionally, because the days of being two different people at home and work are gone. Like it's not a sustainable thing, but there are ways to, again, cater those skills to be the right person in the right place without, forgetting who you are. On a recent podcast I was listening to, they discussed finding joy in your work and how you can use that joy to improve your role and even your culture in the workplace. And like I said, I feel like joy and passion for what you do is the most important thing on the planet. And one of the best characteristics for a leader. I'll brag about Maria, our CEO. She brings joy, humor, and passion to everything we do here at TTA. I was home last week, working from home, and I have a toddler, and she brought out this little accordion while we were having a meeting to make sure that we were both laughing and having a good time, because he just happened to be home with me. And sometimes you have to balance the scales. And she literally got right in there with it. She's like, oh, you have a kid and we also need to talk business. So here's how we're going to do it. And she's dancing with an accordion. It was the best. It was the best, because he literally was like, Maria's so silly. I'm like, yeah, she is. She is the best. But
he wants to come in and play with my toys.
He does. He keeps talking about it every day since then. We're going to bed and he's ready to wake up going, I want to go to Maria's house and play with toys. I'm like, we all do, buddy, but we got to make some plans to do that some other time.
He's so cute.
But I mean, just even being able to talk about it like this, creating that culture is so important. And I speak very highly of Maria in this setting, in all settings. And it's one of those things where people can't believe that I work for a person like this, because it is still one of those things that's kind of unheard of in a corporate environment, even though we are making moves to be that way. And that being said, we've all experienced people who are not like that, and what it can do to the work environment and towards our growth.
Yeah, I think that if you don't enjoy what you're doing, find something else to do because life is too short. Life is too short. I have this saying, I'm always running around saying, and I'm like, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Fun is it's the outward expression of joy. Like if you truly have joy, you're having fun. Right? If you have passion, you're having fun. Fun doesn't happen because we force it. Fun isn't, forced team building activities. Fun isn't forced, hey, we're going to start adding emojis to all of our posts. We can't force the fun to happen. The fun is the natural result of the ingrained joy, the ingrained passion. And I think that starts first with loving what you do and being really joyful and passionate about it. And if you're not, really finding, well, what would make me joyful? What am I passionate about? And then if you are in charge of leading a team or hiring a team, it starts with hiring people that have joy and have passion, making sure that they understand, what's the vision that we're working toward? What's the big, exciting goals that we're setting for our company, for our team, for each individual, and tapping into that passion that each individual has. And I think that sometimes we forget that that can be part of the interviewing process. That can be part of the recruiting activities. And I think it's honestly the most important part, starting with our values and making sure that the people who are coming to work with us are equally as joyful and passionate. So on my team, I have my director of operations, Mara. And hey, Mara, I love her. She's amazing. And she is joy-filled and she is passionate. And she sees the connection between what she does every single day and how we're changing the world. The conversations that she and I have behind the scenes about the day-to-day operations and the fun stuff that she likes to kind of nerd out over with spreadsheets and operational things. And I'm like, I don't know about that stuff. I'm a people person. I'm not a tech person or a spreadsheet person. And so it's really cool to be able to see that we have completely different skill sets. She's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. She loves numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. And I love conversation and community and pulling people in. And we still are both joy-filled. We're still both passionate about what we do because we see the big vision and we're going toward that together. And every single thing that we do leads toward that bigger vision. Like, how cool is that? And just like you, Jocelyn, she gets to be home with her kid. You know, he was sick from school the other day. Yeah, he's running around in his diaper behind her, and it was like, "Mommy, I need a snack." Okay, go get a snack. Actually, I'm going to go get a snack too. But, and I think it's just embracing that work can look different. You can have and I don't like the word balance. I like the word harmony, work-life harmony. Sometimes work kind of takes a front seat, and then sometimes family takes a front seat. Personal things kind of ebb and flow, just like professional things. And just remembering that those two things can work in harmony. They don't have to work against each other, and you don't have to balance them perfectly. Because to me, that's like walking a tightrope. Like if you don't have perfect balance, you are going to fall off, and perfect balance is impossible to achieve. So, we have women who come to our coaching calls and they're breastfeeding their children. I mean, obviously you can tip the camera up and you don't have to, have everything full force on video. But I love that we've created a space where women feel comfortable coming to work and having important business conversations and breastfeeding. That is so powerful. That's so different. And sometimes I forget that that's very unique until I talk to people who work in corporate jobs or the typical 9 to 5. And they're like, wait, what? Women do what? I'm like, yeah, they do. Fantastic. And it's so cool.
So we haven't talked about your business, Sprout HR. So we're talking a lot about your book, and obviously there's a lot of overlapping between what you do and the stories you shared in your book. Can you explain how you work with organizations?
Yeah, so we work a few different ways. We have a couple of primary focuses. We work with women-owned businesses with under 50 employees on hiring and leadership development, but we also work with professional women in organizations in Fortune 500 companies and all over the US and around the world on leadership development. Because regardless of where you are, whether you own a small business or you're working in a corporate environment, chances are you need some leadership development. You might not have a lot of resources or access to opportunities or mentors or people who you can, really be in community with. And so community is a big part of the way that we work with women as well. We think that it's so important for you to be with other women who are like you, who are different from you, who have experiences that you can leverage and pull on. And so it really kind of turns into this whole mentorship community. And so we also work with organizations as a speaker and creating customized workshops and various tools like that to help them with their women's leadership development programs, or even their new and aspiring leaders. So we do have some folks who have a variety of folks in their programs, and we love to work with new leaders, because these are all the things that we wish we would have had experience with and exposure to, when we were starting out, myself and Mara and some other folks that we work with.
So when you work with organizations, are a lot of the programs customized, or do you have like a standard curriculum that you might teach also?
both. So we can do a standard curriculum. I have a lot of great training and resources and tools that we can work through. Everything is super fun. It's dynamic. It's engaging. I do not sit and just talk at people for an hour or 5 hours or whatever it might be. Everything's super interactive. So that way you get hands-on, you get experience, you get to really be with the learning and not just listening to it and then saying, oh, that's all great concepts. Now I'm going to go back over here and, forget it all and not do anything with it. So it's very engaging. It's very interactive. We focus a lot on pre-work and post-work. So that way you get that wraparound learning experience as well. And we do, our standard programs and courses and trainings. And then we also work with some companies on customized trainings. What do your people need? Where are the gaps? What do you wish they were doing that they're not doing? And how can we help to close that gap with various learning strategies and techniques and topics?
I love that. So do you bring the mentorship aspect to your programs as far as different people you were mentioning from different groups or different companies come together and have a weekly or monthly cocktail party or
cocktail parties? Yeah, we have not. Yes. We have not, but I think that is absolutely something that we'd be open to. We do have a group program style where women business owners can come together, and then on the other side we have another option where professional women can come together, because there are some nuances there. When you have your own business, it's a whole different experience than being a woman in a corporate leadership experience, which has its own unique challenges. And having been on both sides, having worked for companies like Kroger and J.Crew and these really large, Fortune 500, Fortune 25 organizations, I have that experience. And I know, and I spent about 10 years in corporate. I know and understand that very well. And then on the small business side, you're dealing with a whole different set of issues and challenges and unique things that happen and come up in business. So I have two different options. And that's kind of where the group coaching and the mentorship really comes into play. So that way everybody gets the relevant experience and the relevant mentorship that they need.
I love it. We need to talk more after this about your program.
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah, it's all really good information, and I love the energy that you have behind it. This is good vibrations. I feel like people come to the table feeling good about the conversation that they're going to have between your perspective from your book and your leadership styles, and honing in on what makes you capable of using those skills in a leadership format, but obviously Sprout HR and what they're doing for women in leadership and developing their teams. I love all of it. So as we wrap up, because we're coming to the top of our hour and we still have fun things to discuss, what advice could you give our listeners who want to take those first steps to becoming a leader, honing in on who they are and being that form of a leader, and maybe how Sprout HR can help?
Yeah, I think the first, and this is going to be the one and only characteristic or quality or trait that I say every leader has to have. Okay, so listen up. This is the only one I'm going to tell you have to have: self-awareness. You have got to have self-awareness. If you are not willing to look internally and say, what am I doing well? Where am I missing the mark? And what do I need in order to do what I want to do? You're not going to make it. I promise. So you have to have self-awareness. Every other skill set, every other quality or characteristic, have whatever you have. So think about this from this perspective. Where am I a leader? We've talked about that, right? Okay, I'm self-aware. Great. Awesome. Where am I already leading? And what would I like to be doing? And maybe even considering what feels really scary. Because I think sometimes the things that scare us the most are exactly where we need to be. And I think that one of the things that has been so pivotal in our work with our clients is helping people to push past that upper limit that we create for ourselves. Don't create your own glass ceiling, right? Don't create your own glass ceiling. Look for those upper limits. What's scary about it? What are you telling yourself about why you can't, or why you shouldn't, or why you're not the right person to do that? Maybe they're just stories. Get some outside support. Whether that's a mentor like myself, whether that's a friend who can help you break down some of those lies. I know my friends are constantly saying things like, Ashley, that's not true. That's 100% not true. And I'm like, okay. And they are very brutally honest. Like, it's not like, well, I don't know, maybe that's true or not. No, that is not true. Stop telling yourself that. You can do this. This is possible, and this is for you. So what is holding you back? Maybe yourself.
I agree. I love that insight. We all need good, brutal friends, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's like
too.
the requirement is brutal honesty. We all need a couple of people who will do that for us in our life. So I love that you have that. I love that you explain that. And I love the journey and the conversation. This was really insightful, and perspective wise, I'm 100% in on it, Ashley. 100% in.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Maria. This has been such a fun conversation. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be here with you both today and just open up the doors for anyone who might be listening that being a leader is possible, and it's possible for you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Great information.
Thank you.
And on that note, it's time we find out a little bit more about you, Ashley. So
Yes.
we have, once again in season 3, our favorite segment, the TTA 10.
Woo woo.
It's the TTA 10 final questions for our guest.
Okay, Ashley. So we talked about the TTA 10 before we started recording. It's 10 rapid fire questions, very playful, to get to know you a little bit better, bring some extra layers of personality into our conversation. And the target is to answer them in 90 seconds or less. There's no right or wrong answers, but we find that there are better answers than others. So quickly as you can, answer the questions, but it's all in good fun. If you are able to do it in 90 seconds or less, David, our genius producer, will have a wonderful celebration for you. And if you do not, he will also have a terrible non-celebration for you. So either way you want to spin it, you get something at the end. So let's hope it's a winner, Ashley. Are you ready?
I am ready. I am pumped for this.
Fantastic.
Let's do it.
David, give me the clock, and whenever you're ready.
As usual, 90 seconds on the clock. Beginning now.
All right, Ashley, which Disney character would you say you most relate to?
Oh gosh, this is a hard question. Okay, I'm going to say that I definitely relate to Belle, because I could totally be trapped in a castle with a monster as long as I had books and tea parties.
Speaking of books, which was the last book that you finished?
The last book that I finished was, I'm reading the Harry Potter series for the first time ever, and it was book number 5.
Fantastic.
They've
What
been
was
great.
the first movie that ever made you cry?
All of them? I cried everything. I'm a very emotional person. Oh my gosh. Probably something when I was like very young. I definitely remember sobbing to Titanic in the movie theater and being horribly embarrassed.
She let go. What is your favorite season of the year?
Oh, fall. We're getting ready to come into it. Best.
Pick one place that you've never traveled to that you would like to as a bucket list.
Italy, for sure.
What is 3 times 3?
Oh my God, that's terrible. 9.
What is the name of Winnie the Pooh's best friend?
Piglet?
What is your astrological sign?
Pisces.
What would be the one thing you would bring with you on a deserted island?
Oh, chapstick.
And a night on the town or a night on the couch?
Ooh, a night on the town. I love to party.
All right, there's our 10 days.
Did I do it?
I don't know. He's going to tell us. What is the verdict?
The verdict is, with a time of 1 minute and 22 seconds, she comes in under the threshold, and she is, in fact, a TTA winner. Yes.
All right.
And in honor of Ashley's home of Tennessee, I have a little Tennessee music queued up as we start this celebration. Yes, Ashley, I should report that the weather in Johnson City, Tennessee is a beautiful 74 degrees with a 100% chance of victory for Ashley, because she is a TTA 10 champion. You, Ashley, may shout this news up and down the Appalachian Trail and across the Blue Ridge Parkway. Now that you have achieved this coveted honor, you will be respected and loved by captains of industry, heads of state, and all of your odd but lovable brothers and sisters in human relations. Grab an RC Cola and a moon pie to celebrate, Ashley, because you are a TTA 10 champion.
The most fun I've ever had on a podcast. That was
I knew you were
hilarious.
going to get it.
I did too. I know in this, I had these for you before I even knew you were a bookworm. So like the segue from Belle into like the book that you read, I was like, I nailed this. Right? So we both
did.
win, Ashley.
We do. Everybody gets a moon pie and an RC cola.
Sounds good to me.
Right. Ashley, thank you again so much. This was a wonderful conversation. You are a ton of fun. And I appreciate your perspective on everything. So before we go, what's your book one more time? Let's talk about it and where people can get it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jocelyn, Maria, and David for having me here today. This has been so much fun, an amazing conversation. My book is Transform Your Stories. You can purchase it on Amazon. It's also on our website, sprouthr.co. And if you're looking for us, we're sprouthr.co everywhere you go.
For more information on Sprout HR, visit their website, sprouthr.co. For more information on our guest, Ashley Cox, and her book, Transform Your Stories, please visit us at thetrainingassociates.com. We'll see you later.